So these tasks are all addressed in the chapter, so I'll leave it to you to sift through the chapter to find how to do those things, like setting the size of the output field to 15 or 13, how to set it to be left justified rather than the standard right justified. Numbers come out in a right justified field, right? They come out right justified when you, because you want to line up the decimal point, and so kind of shifting things over to the right makes more sense when you specify a particular field width, like 13 or 15. So to override it requires a stream insertion operator that says, all right, the next field is left justified. Some of those stream operators kind of set the effect and stay in effect until you reverse it or reset it to something else. You'll have to go see, and I don't remember, whether they stay in effect or just simply affect the next item. So be careful about that. So that's A, putting a number out in a, I think I said a 13 character field, and then surround it with slashes so I can see where the end of the field ends. Okay? So what you're supposed to end up with in my particular example was, it should look like that. Of course, don't just print that as a string. I want to see you print an integer, 4,444, and specify the output string to end up with that, but I just want to see the slashes there. All right, so just print a slash, set the field to 13, set it to left justified, print the 4444, and then print a slash. That's what I want for A.
And the 13 field does not include the slash in this line.
The 13 field does not include the slashes. The slashes are just extra. I could have said double quotes or something. Chose slashes. I just. And then you're going to read a string into a character array variable state. So I think I specified how big state is, or how big the character array is. And then did I tell you how many characters to type in? Seemed to me, no.
You said interactively input a 15-character string into a 10-character.
Okay, so I did specify that you're to type in a longer character string than how much that can hold. I want you to see what happens in C++. Print 200 with or without sign. It's another flag effect thing, so that you would print 200. So you'll see 200, and then you should see plus 200, without having to actually explicitly type the plus sign. So you should, there is an extraction notation that tells you to print with the sign. Was that your question?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I mean. So you would see plus 200. Obviously, negative numbers always come out with the sign, but and you never have to worry about that. Printing, I asked what, 255? I changed it to 255 instead of 100, and you're supposed to if you tell it to print it in hex, if you tell it the base is now hexadecimal, the OX will come out automatically. So there's nothing special you have to do to get that, other than telling it that it's the hexadecimal base. All right. And 255, does anyone know what that's going to come out as? 255 in hexadecimals. Anyone know what that is? What is it? OXFF. That's what you'll see. OXFF. Does anyone know what 100 would be? It would have been OX64. But I want to see FF. Now, E is the most curious of them all, I think. So you're going to read into a character array until P is encountered. You're not to do this with a loop. Right? This is just be a couple statements. All right? And I tell you to use there's a get function. And it's alluded to in the reading. But they don't, this is one case, they don't give you an example, but they ask you to do it as an exercise. And I think I even tell you in the instructions to Google it, right? To get the syntax of this special get. And basically you're saying that the delimiter is the character P. Most of the time the delimiter is the new line. Stop inputting until you hit the new line. All right. In this case, it's character P, and it's to be up to 10 characters. That's all part of the get. There's a 3-parameter get method. All right. cin.get. So that's how you use it. Cin, not cin with the greater than signs, but cin.get is what you're after, and it's 3 parameters. That's one you want. That's what I want to see you use. There's no loop. Right? No while loop here.
Do you want to see the character P or the character?
I do not, because it's a delimiter. So the character P will not appear in the result. So when I run this, I'll type in something like stopping, and I should see STO, S-T-O. Because P is the delimiter. That's when it stops reading. And then printing 1.234 in a 9-digit field with leading zeros. All right, again, that's sort of like leading signs. Left justify, it's another string insertion or output insertion flag that you set that. That's it. How about it? Questions? Did I say 1, 2, 3, 4? I might have changed that. I don't know. All right.
Can you just explain E a little bit more? You say interactively input characters until the character period, like in single quotes.
Oh, did I change it to period?
Yes.
Oh, instead of P. P always was a weird delimiter. So, yeah, so I'll type stop, period, and then I want to see stop.
Okay.
It's the delimiter.
Same thing, just.
Same thing, I just picked a different delimiting character,
Okay. Thanks.
which I think is a little more likely
Yeah.
than the letter P as a delimiting character. I for the life of me, I'm trying to figure out why did they choose P. I can't think of an example where P would be the stopping character. All right, yeah, I couldn't remember how I changed it. Is that any other explanation?
Yeah, I was confused on how there was a period here, we
Oh,
didn't say P, so I didn't know.
I
P
read it.
had
No,
a-
P was in the book, and then I changed it. All right.
Same principle.
Exactly, but the period is more likely to be a possible delimiting character. All right. Because that's probably going to go very quickly, you're going to be anxious to go on to the next project, so I can talk about that. Yeah.
I have a question with F. And if 2 decimal places, you just made 1.23 to ignore the 5.
Oh, I did kind of throw that in there, didn't I? So what did I say? 1 point?
1.235 in a 9-digit field with 2 decimal places.
Oh yeah, I did cut the decimal places because I want to see rounding.
Okay.
Yeah, I want you to see rounding. I thought that was what. That's why I made that little variation, so that you specified the precision, and then also get leading zeros. Occasionally, you have to format items with the leading zeros. The classic reason for that was at least my earliest explanation to print leading zeros, or to fill in the zeros with asterisks. And you sometimes still see it. If you print a check, you want to kind of fill in any place where someone could actually pencil in an extra digit to try to get more money and fraud the bank or fraud the company or whatever. Yeah. So the leading zeros or leading asterisks are sometimes, you want to have that automatically formatted in. So we're looking at C++'s methodology for that. A language like COBOL, that's all part of the formatting, output formatting capability. Any other questions? All right, so briefly then for the next project on exception handling for the rationals. So, and a couple of you, I found a couple of things that I wanted you to fix for the exception handling version of this project that is really a fix-up of the overloading. And rather than having you resubmit an overload, I just said do that. So there were like two or three of you folks, maybe they're not here, that need to hear that. I will be looking to see that that's been accomplished because the exception handling piece of this is almost trivial. Right? So up to this point, I resisted, for the most part, putting in zeros just to see your program bomb. And for rational numbers, you should never have a zero show up in the denominator. And that's essentially what you've got to trap for. You've got to go through your program wherever a zero could potentially show up in the denominator. That would be during construction, and division, and reciprocal. Right? Classic division by zero. I mean, it's a rational number. Anytime a zero gets in the denominator, it shouldn't. Right? Your rational class may presume as a precondition that a zero should never show up there. Right? It can't function. And you should not simply make the assumption that I'll turn that into a 1. Mathematically, if I divide by 0, what is the answer? Infinity. So 1 is hardly infinity. So don't just simply change it to some valid number. Instead, your option is throw an exception. Say, sorry, you violated the rules. You tried to divide by 0. You tried to take the reciprocal of a 0. Or you tried to construct a rational number with a 0 in the denominator. Sorry, I'm not going to play this game anymore. Throw an exception. Right? So be sure you handle it in all places. Now, it should turn out, depending on how you wrote your code, there may only be a couple places you actually have to look to see if a 0 is showing up in the denominator and throw the exception. Don't catch the exception in the rational class. That's the driver's purview. In the driver, wherever a division by 0 or a 0 could show up in the denominator, if that could show up, you need to surround your program with a try-catch block. So your driver program should not have to be modified except for try-catch blocks. Your rational class only needs to be modified to do the test for 0 in the denominator and throw the exception. Got it? The throws are in the rational class. The catches are in your driver. No other place. Your header file doesn't have to do a thing. All right? So it's not a lot of additional code, but my testing will be trying to break your program. Your program should robustly handle me putting in all sorts of zeros. I'll put in 0, 0, 0 over 5, 0 over minus 1, 0 over 0. Handle it. Don't break. If it bombs, if I get a runtime error, that's not acceptable. this is, you gotta handle it, but it's not that hard. The hardest thing will be to be sure you put the appropriate try-catches. Do not use one super try-catch block. I want you to handle the scenario, the situation where the division by zero occurs or the zero in the denominators, and then recover and try to continue. Right? If I'm putting in 0 over 0 as the first rational number, ask me to try again. Right? Say it's an invalid number, but don't just stop the program and say, sorry, you put in an invalid number, I'm done. Your driver can't do that. Your driver needs to handle the monkey at the keyboard. Right? It needs to handle the bad input and let the user try again and continue the program in its completion. If I try to divide by 0, then say division by 0, but go on and test to see if equality and inequality, less than, all that stuff you had in there before. Don't change. Don't change anything. Add to this project. Don't take anything away. You're adding to this to make it robust. Right? The catches are in the driver, the throws are in the rational column. Right? Oh, the driver catches and the class throws. Okay? In case you didn't catch that before. Oh, catching, where's that? In the driver. You catch in the driver, try catch in the driver. There should be several of them. Do you need a try-catch block around multiplication? Addition, subtraction? No. I should not see try-catches around addition, subtraction, multiplication. If you have two valid rational numbers, you will be able to add, subtract, and multiply them without worry. Division is another question. Reciprocal is another question. And actually, since you implemented division by reciprocal and multiplication, that actually narrowed down even where you had to do the testing for 0 in the denominator. Again, a really well-designed implementation. I can imagine an implementation where you would only need to have one place of testing and a throw. So everything else runs through it. I think there's a method that almost all of your functions end up calling at some point, and that's where you can handle it there. You can handle the throw at exactly one place if it's really, really well designed. You will have multiple points of try-catches. There will be not one, there will be multiple points. Again, do not surround try-catches, don't surround code that don't need it. All right, questions on that? That's the penultimate project. And the last project is with the random access files, and I want to look at that. I may take the liberty of changing that still a little bit. More likely to make it a tad simpler than what I have currently. Maybe. I'll see. Questions? Anything? Okay.